Welcome, welcome to Dreamers and Doers, Women Changing the World. And so be inspired by outstanding women entrepreneurs, dream builders, and difference makers. And I'm so thrilled today to introduce to you my very special guest, Debra Stangl. She's the founder of Sedona Soul Adventures, the author of the book, The Journey to Happy, and I've got it right here. How embracing the concept that nothing is wrong can transform your life. And so, Debra, you have an incredible story of transition and transformation from being a divorce attorney in Nebraska to coming to Sedona and then starting a beautiful healing retreat company. And so it's my pleasure to have you here on this interview, and I'm so grateful that you're willing to share your incredible story with us today.
Well, thanks, Carolina. It's really wonderful to be here. I love it that you're doing this.
Thank you so much. And so let's just get the ball rolling. And so my first question is, what caused you to transition from being a divorce attorney to running a retreat company it's an amazing story in Sedona.
Well, yeah, it is. It's definitely a story because I came here to Sedona for the first time 22 years ago. In fact, 2 weeks ago, it was my 22nd anniversary of coming here for the first time. And when I came here, every part of my life was a mess. I was in an unhappy marriage. I weighed 40 pounds more than I weigh now. I hated my work. I was $50,000 in debt because of some bad business decisions that had been made by my now ex-husband. And for 5 years, I would pray and meditate, and I would say to God, please tell me what to do. And I would hear this little voice in the back of my head, and it would say, you need to leave your law practice. And I wouldn't even listen to that. It was like my reaction every time was, how can I possibly leave my law practice? I'm $50,000 in debt. I'm our sole support. There's no way I can do that. Well, my life just kept getting worse and worse. And finally, in January of 1999, I really hit a low point. And I came here for what I thought was going to be 3 days of just being quiet. And instead, I did one session with one of our amazing practitioners here in Sedona. And in that session, my high self came to me in a vision. And what she said to me was, you either leave your law practice now or you're going to die like your mother did. And I was exactly the age that my mother was when she got sick and died 5 years later from cancer. And I was like, okay, this time I got the message. I went home. I spent 2 weeks with my lawyer brain trying to figure out how I was possibly going to leave my practice when I was $50,000 in debt, had no money in savings. And suddenly there was this one day where I just went into this space of surrender. And I said, God, I get it. I know I have to do this, but I've got to have some help. And literally within a few hours, I get a phone call from one of my clients whose case was finished. And at the end of the call, he told me that he had just started a new business refinancing mortgages. And I said to him, could you get my mortgage payment reduced? He calls me back in 10 minutes and says, I can get your mortgage payment cut in half, and I can get you $50,000 in cash. And I'm like, oh my God, I had never told anybody that I was $50,000 in debt. It was too embarrassing. And so suddenly that was the first step. And I spent 6 months closing my practice. I started coming out to Sedona, and I would come out for like a month at a time, and I would do healing work with different practitioners that I was finding. I would do like 1 or 2 sessions, and then I would go home, and then a few months later I would come back for another month. And I did that for 3 years. So the joke at the office is that my soul adventure took 3 years and everybody else does it in 3 or 4 days. But what happened was that 2 weeks before 9/11, I was here doing another session. My high self came in again in a vision and said, it's time to move to Sedona. And I was like, for what? But my experience is they never show you the whole thing. They just show you the next step. So I went home, I sold my house. They said it would take 6 months. I did it in 3 days, got more money than I even listed it for. And then I moved to Sedona, sat here for 6 months going, okay, I did what you told me to do. Now what? And then I started having dreams. And I saw how me working one-on-one with these different practitioners had made all the difference for me in my life. Before that, I had read a million books. I had been in therapy. I'd done workshops. I'd done seminars. I'd done all kinds of group things. And I never found that anything was transforming me the way that working one-on-one in these private sessions with these amazing practitioners. And as you know, Sedona is a mecca that people from all over the world are drawn to come here, and especially people are drawn to come here to do their work. And so there's all these incredible people here. And so I saw that I could put together in a few days what had taken me 3 years of transformation. And that's what we do. We do transformational retreats that are custom designed for each individual or each couple. We don't do anything in groups because I believe that it's the private one-on-one work. That is what did the transformation for me. And that's what I find works for other people. So that was almost 19 years ago. I started with 10 practitioners. I have over 50 now. And we've had thousands and thousands of people come here, and I'm still amazed at what happens.
Wow, that's so beautiful, Debra. And I'm privileged to be one of the
absolutely, yes.
And so I've been witnessing some of the transformations, and it's nothing short of miracles that are happening in this immersion retreats. So would you like to share some of the results that your clients achieve?
Well, it's like I said, even after 19 years and all these thousands of people, I am still amazed at what happens. Individuals come to us and they're at the end of their rope. They're unhappy. They're blocked. They're wounded. They've suffered from trauma. They're depressed. They're unhappy. They're like I was when I came here for the first time. They don't know their life purpose. They want to know their life purpose. And even if their life isn't a total mess, a lot of people want to have their life go to the next level, and really, really, really be living their best life. So that's the big stuff that we do with individuals, is helping people who are stopped and blocked and not living their best life. And what we do here for everybody that, that we work with, the secret of what we're doing is that people come to us and they're in disconnection on one or all of the levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And what we are doing, what happens when you're living your life in disconnection, your life just doesn't work. And if you're in disconnect on one of the levels, it's usually affecting you. I mean, think about it. If you're having problems in your marriage, it starts affecting your work. It starts affecting your health. Same thing with anything that's going on in our lives. So what we're doing, we are finding what are the blocks, what's the trauma, what's the negative thought patterns that you have taken on, what are the patterns that you've taken on that you keep on doing over and over again. All of this I call generically gunk. What's the gunk that's in there holding you back? And so we find it, we clear it, and we move it out, and we move people back into connection on all the levels: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. And when you're operating on all the levels, then your life becomes fantastic. And so for couples, it's the same thing. Now, we do work with them together, but we do that first, really digging into what's going on, what are the blocks, what's happening, what's causing the trouble. And then we have them do individual work, because, what brought one person to the problems is not the same as what brought another person. So we're doing work with them then individually. So we're clearing out their blocks and their gunk, bringing them back into connection with the highest part of themselves. Then we bring them back together as a couple. And when they're operating on all the on all the levels like that, then all of a sudden the problems that are in the marriage have gone. So we have so many people who have come to us who are on the verge of divorce, who have even filed even. And oh my gosh, when we get underneath what really is the problem, because it's usually not what they think is the problem. It's usually other stuff. It's usually stuff that happened to us as a child, or it's old patterns, it's old wounding. That's what's causing the trouble. So when we get down to that, it all drops away and they're back in love with each other. And it's just the sweetest, most wonderful thing. So it's so funny to me that I spent 20 years divorcing people, and now I'm almost at 20 years with helping people stay together. So I feel like my karma is almost balanced here.
Well, you help them either way, but must be more fulfilling. And
Totally.
Yeah. And so I'm just wondering, it sounds like you must have cleared a lot of your gunk as well in those 3 years period.
That's totally.
So what are some of the blocks or the things that you cleared and that really freed you up, Debra?
Well, I know that I have a core wounding. All of us, what I've discovered after literally 40 years of working with people, because I was doing family law and doing juvenile, law and juvenile court and all that kind of stuff. What I've really discovered after 40 years of working with people, that everybody has some sort of an issue around not enough. Either they believe I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not enough. It's some variation. And a lot of people don't even know what that is. That's what's going on for most people. Most people don't know what's going on with them. So I had a lot of blocks that came from my family. I grew up with an alcoholic father and a mother who was an enabler. And so I grew up with a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of doing this thing of on the outside looking good, covering up what was on the inside, which was a scared little girl who was afraid that she wasn't enough. And so that was showing up in my patterns. I had been married and divorced. And, with my work, it was also showing up. My parents had a pattern of, if you really, really work hard, that's the only way to bring abundance into your life. And so I was working, 70 to 80 hours a week and working really, really hard. And I was still having money trouble. And so when you look at your life and you see what's going on, particularly on the stuff that you don't like, that's telling you where you have blocks. And so same thing with my body. I grew up, I started dancing at the age of 3. My body was criticized, and because I don't have a dancer body, I'm not tall and thin, I'm short. and so from the age of 3, I had people trying to turn me into something that I wasn't, and my body was criticized, and I grew up hating my body. I got put on my first diet when I was 12 years old, even though I look back at pictures, I wasn't fat, but I grew up with this thought pattern of my body isn't okay. My body isn't good enough. I need to change my body. I hate my body. And that's really what was going on. I hated my body. And so what happens when you do that is, everything's energy. I talk about that a lot in my book. What we think about expands. What we focus on expands. And that really pertains to your body. If you think you're fat, you're going to be doing things over and over again to be and continue to be fat. Now, I would go on every diet in the book and I would lose weight. I would lose 20 to 30 pounds at a time. And I would be, dieting crazy and exercising crazy. And I would lose the weight. But guess what? Because I kept thinking that I was fat and that something was wrong with my body, that I hated my body, I wanted to change my body. No matter what I did, the weight would always come back on. Now, the thing that happened for me, the block that finally got cleared, I talk about this in my book, that I had a moment, and this is similar to what happened with the $50,000 because I went into a space of surrender. I was on another crazy diet. I was on another crazy exercise thing. My life was having trouble again. And there was this moment where I started crying. I climbed into bed. My body started vibrating to the point where I couldn't move. And all of a sudden, excuse me, I heard this voice saying over and over to me, nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong. And then they were showing me in every level of my life, including my body, my money, my relationships, my work, that nothing was wrong. I got out of bed and I went, you know what? I'm done. I'm done with the crazy dieting. I'm done with the manic exercising. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I just started eating what I wanted. I listened to my body. I started loving my body. I literally started loving my body. And 5 weeks later, I went shopping for blue jeans and I pulled down a size 14 and discovered I was a size 6. Went home and weighed myself and discovered that I had dropped 40 pounds in 5 weeks without dieting or exercising. And I've maintained that ever since then. And that's been like 12 years ago. So it's all about, how do we feel? How are we thinking? How are we moving in our life? And so all of those blocks were the blocks that I had to move out of, that, I wasn't enough. I wasn't good enough. I have to work, really, really hard. I have to do this and do that. And it's all resistance. When I finally dropped the resistance and went into surrender, that is when everything changed.
Wow. That is so powerful. It's changed from the inside out, and it starts with the love inside for ourselves, right?
Exactly. Totally. Yeah.
Wow. And actually, I just noticed that Jill Jackson Jenkins, she commented, she says, I'm so grateful to you, Debra, for my time with Sedona Soul Adventure. My outlook has completely changed. My life has been transformed. So we got,
I just love that so much. And that is what we hear from people over and over and over again. And it is just so absolutely incredible. It's just so amazing, and it's this wonderful combination of this amazing energy in Sedona, the incredible practitioners that are here, and then the energy that people bring. This big energy of really wanting to have a transformation. And so the combination of all of those things, it's what I call the Sedona Effect. And I talk about that in my book because it is absolutely astounding and amazing what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love for you just to briefly maybe share, this concept, nothing is wrong. I get it with regards to your body, but people probably ask you, there's wars and there's cruelty, and how does that relate?
Exactly. So what I'm not saying that the world is perfect or exactly the way that you want it to be right now. What I'm saying is that this is an approach to life. So, of course, terrible things happen. I talk in my book about the terrible things that happened to me. My mother died at a very, very young age. My father's alcoholism, unhappy marriages, all this stuff. So we can either allow life to crush us or we can embrace it. We can struggle or we can thrive. So I'm talking about an approach to life. And of course, if something terrible happens, especially a death, we have to mourn that. We have to grieve that. But we have a choice about where do we stay and where do we keep our energy. I love this quote from Henry Ford. He said over 100 years ago, there's two types of people in the world: those who think they can and those who think they can't, and they're both right. So, like I said, when I hated my body, I stayed fat. When I started loving my body, I suddenly dropped 40 pounds. When I hated my work, there was nothing I could do to make myself happy. When I finally got to the point of going, what do I want to have in my life? So we can create our life. I think that most people don't believe that. And they don't believe that because they're living in disconnection. They have wounds and gunk and blocks that are in there. We all have that. The key is to find it, move it, and then move ourselves back into connection so that we can have the life and the relationship of our dreams.
And you are such a beautiful role model. You used your traumatic past as a springboard into accessing your potential, and a big part of it was to do the healing. And yeah, so that's so inspiring. And so, what are some of your favorite tools, maybe for our listeners to?
Well, I have in my book, I have 9 different processes, and you can buy my book for 99 cents on Amazon. I priced it at 99 cents because I want to have as many people as possible read the book. And so there's 9 different processes in there. And I would say that my 2 favorites are tapping. If you know about tapping, it is so powerful, so amazing. It is such an incredible way to move energy, and also meditation. And I know a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I can't meditate. It's so hard. I have in my book, if you buy the book for 99 cents for the Kindle version, there's 2 meditations that come with the book. One of them is about loving your body, and the other one will just put you in a very perfect state. And I think using that guided meditation, they're both just 9 minutes. They really help keep you from that monkey mind that we all have. Even the Dalai Lama has monkey mind. So don't get on yourself because you've got monkey mind. But those are the 2 that I would say are the biggest. And then also using the breath. We do a breath journey here at Soul Adventures that is a cornerstone and so transformational. But even in my book, I talk about even doing deep breathing for 5 minutes can be amazing. So get my book and use those, because I talk about how to use them, what they do, and it can make a huge difference in your life right away.
And I highly recommend it too, because I've read it, and there's also a series of videos we can access just, through
yes,
the book. So that's really brilliant.
That's the other reason I love to have people read the Kindle version of the book, because the book has videos. So it's really easy to you get to them and you hit the videos and they're right there, and that's all included in the book.
Beautiful. It sounds like your sister is online. She says so inspiring. She's always been an inspirational light in our family.
Oh, Casey, I love you.
And Amanda, this is fabulous. Thank you, Carolina, for inviting Debra to share her inspiring story. I'm going to use her tool for loving my body.
Good. Please start loving your body today, because it makes all the difference.
Let's just give our bodies a hug right now.
Yeah. And just to make yourself feel good, not just for losing weight, but just feeling good about everything. Everything is all about loving yourself. It all comes down to loving yourself, no matter what you're talking about. So I just can't say that big enough.
Well, thank you so much, Debra, for sharing your wisdom. And what's on the horizon? What's next for you, Debra? And then we'll bring it in for landing.
Well, I'm actually writing a 2nd edition of my book, because when I wrote the book in 2016, every chapter is about a different part of your life. And I had a happy ending at the end of each one, that I went from, hating my work to loving my work with Sedona Soul Adventures, and going from being overweight to losing weight, and my money problems and coming into abundance. And the end of the relationship chapter really didn't have a happy ending. But the week after my book came out, just a few weeks after my book came out, I started using the processes in my book to bring in my soulmate. And he came in 3 weeks after after the book came out. And so I'm going to relaunch the book and with the relationship chapter updated to talk about how I went from being unhappily married to finding and marrying my soulmate. And also, I'm doing the Audible book because I've had so many people ask me about doing that. So that's all going to be happening in the next few months.
Oh, that's wonderful, Debra. And how can people reach you and find out about the retreats?
The best way is to come to Sedona Soul Adventures.com, and that will tell you a whole bunch about doing the retreats. If you want to do a retreat, like I said, they're all private and custom designed. So what I would invite you to do is call and speak with one of our angel guides. They're the people that connect with you, really, really get in there deep and custom design the retreats. There's no cost or obligation for talking to one of our angel guides. I'm sure that you'll feel better just after you talk to them. So have them put together a retreat for you and see how it feels. You're going to know whether this is for you or not. And it's so wonderful because now we do the retreats either in Sedona or you can do them at home. We started doing that in March, and oh my gosh, I've just been so happy and amazed to find out that the retreats at home are just as transformational because we're literally bringing the energy of Sedona to you. And it doesn't matter whether you're in your living room or just connecting with our energy, because we can bring that energy to you. Our practitioners like you, Carolina, are such masters at that. So you can do the retreat either in Sedona or at home. And so talk to an angel guide. You're going to know whether this is right for you. You will feel it.
Well, thank you so much, Debra. And it's such a pleasure and privilege to have you here. And yeah, I wish you all the best with the second edition of your book. And maybe we can have you on the interview again some other time.
That would be great. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you to everybody who joined us today. And I hope you're going to join us for the next one next week. Same place, same time. Take care. All the best.